For the Right Honourable J. Enoch Powell.
With over 1,000 non-white immigrants entering the country each week, Powell continued to campaign. Both Labour and the Conservatives distanced themselves from his inflammatory rhetoric, but they were reluctant to alienate his many supporters. Their compromise was to embrace the equation at the core of Powell's argument, but to express it in politically acceptable terms.
The line was, minimise the immigration, then there'll be so few, everyone can be relaxed, and then we can not have discrimination. I mean, that was really the argument.
The smaller the numbers of the strangers who come amongst us, the easier it is to treat them exactly as ourselves.
People have not got confidence that the government have got a grip on the situation as far as fresh immigrants are concerned. Now, this concerns me because I want to see good race relations. And I do not believe you can have good race relations unless people have got confidence that the situation is under control.
If we were to have an open door to them at the end of the day, then it would mean such an influx that our social services, our housing, our whole environment in some of our big towns and cities would be congested and overloaded, to the point where it would be impossible to carry out one of the most difficult problems any country's had to do in recent times, and that is to assimilate the immigrants among our own population.
It may have been politically convenient to follow Powell's line that tough immigration control was the key to fostering positive race relations, but there was a risk.
If your immigration restrictions are too repressive, you encourage bad race relations rather than encourage contentment and satisfaction. Because you are saying we can't afford any more of these people here, and the implication is there's something undesirable about these people.
What's the coon doing here?
By the 1970 general election campaign, both parties feared that outright public attacks on Powell could lose them the election. But one member of Wilson's cabinet was unwilling to soft-pedal.
The final proof of Powell's power is that Heath dare not attack him publicly, even when he says things that disgust decent Conservatives.
I decided that the right thing to do was to come out not only again on the main question, but to link it to fascism.
The flag of racialism, which has been hoisted in Wolverhampton, is beginning to look like the one that fluttered 25 years ago over Dachau and Belsen.
Larry Harris put Mr. Benn's attack to him for campaign report.
The most evil feature of Mr. Powell's new conservatism is the hatred it is stirring up.
I'll answer the question very briefly indeed, for part of it was answered by the reaction of the ordinary men and women who heard the reported remarks. But I beg your pardon? Well, I heard it, and people can judge for themselves what the reaction is. And people can judge for themselves what the reaction of the British public is, too.
This issue, because it is so important, not just in this country, but in the world in which we live, has got to be an issue in this election, and we have got to make it so.
Of course, it infuriated Harold Wilson, who didn't want this question on the agenda. He said later that I lost hundreds of seats for Labour, or thousands of votes, I forget what it was.
The Queen has asked me to form the next government, and I am indeed proud to accept.
Many felt that Powell did help the Conservatives to victory.
Well, those are the Powellites. Those are his supporters. There's no evidence of that.
I personally think Enoch was always an asset. Always an asset.
In government, the Conservatives were swift to introduce a new immigration law.
Legislation will be introduced on Commonwealth immigration.
It's a tough act. Here is Edward Heath taking a brave stand against building up racist feeling, xenophobic feeling, but also agreeing to and permitting the 1971 Act.
The new law was designed to make good the Conservatives' tough promises and to put a lid on race as a political issue. It restricted the right to live in the UK to people whose parents or grandparents were British. Very few non-white Commonwealth citizens qualified.